Yo, I'm Bob. Into Marvel, happen to be totally blind since birth, talking about X-Men97 Season 1, Episode 8, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 1. This one premiered on May 1st in 2024. Spoilers ahead, so you might want to watch the episode before watching this episode review. Otherwise, you're going to get spoiled. That being said, jumping right in, and you were warned. So you've got so many different bits of story in this episode. I love the stuff at the very beginning with Cable and Cyclops. This has been something I wanted to see for over 2 decades. I loved how neither one is really wanting to talk. I think Scott feels awkward. I mean, because the last time he saw Nathan was a baby. Well, I mean, he's been with Cable a few times, and this has got to make the situation even weirder for him, you know? Such a cool opening to the episode. I like how Jean, ever the mediator, is trying to get the two to talk. And I love that conversation that she has with Kurt at the beginning of the episode. Like, oh, I wasn't there when Nathan was born. I don't feel like I deserve to care about it as much as I do. That's Madeline's kid. And I like how Kurt is there too, because, he cares about Rogue. That's his adopted sister. And he brings up such a beautiful point that, hey, Rogue and I, when we found out that we were basically family, we decided, we chose to be family. We made that choice. It's a choice. Blood is blood, but family's a choice. And such a beautiful little speech by Nightcrawler. And I love that he's at Xavier's school, and I kind of hope that he stays there for a bit. It's been so cool to see this guy show up in more than just 2 episodes from the original animated series. He's a character I've really wanted to explore more, not just in the movies, but this is the Kurt that I was first introduced to when I was a kid. So having him back and having him kind of comfort everyone is just such a cool bit in this episode. So we learn that Cable got separated from Bishop in the time stream. So, just like in the comics, Cable winds up in the future by himself. I hope, we get into how he was raised as a warrior at some point in the show. I really hope that this isn't going to be Cable's last hurrah in the Tolerance is Extinction trilogy. We learn that now his timeline, it is all about Bastion. He was fighting Apocalypse at one point, but now I wonder if things have somehow changed. I don't know if what happened in the access of time happened to change Cable's future. He doesn't even mention Apocalypse. Or maybe Bastion was there in that timeline all this time. We just didn't see it. We might be, finally learning about just how bad Cable's future is. And Cyclops, he feels like such a failure as a father. He doesn't know how to make things right. And I like how Jean is trying to comfort him. And you've got Cable, Scott, and Jean. They're going on a fact-finding mission. They need to figure out who the heck Bastion is. They're trying to figure out some weakness that they can use to take him down, because now he's got the public turning against the X-Men, because they found out the information from that satellite that Xavier is alive and kicking, and they've spun it to where the X-Men lied about Xavier basically, being alive. Now, at the end of the original animated series, though, when Xavier is taken by the Shi'ar to their homeworld, he says, "I might not be back in body, but my spirit will remain with you as it was always meant to be." And so I got the sense that Xavier didn't even know whether or not he was going to survive. But Bastion being Bastion, he is spinning this in his favor. And, after everyone splits up, And when you've got a Beast in the lab, you've got Tilby showing up. Oh, but before that, I like how they're talking about how Cable talked about going to Genosha over and over again, and he couldn't change things. And you've got Beast mentioning the mystics of Camartage, and that, of course, made me think of Doctor Strange. 90s Spider-Man Doctor Strange, mind you. Not the Strange from the MCU. The Doctor Strange I was first introduced to when I was a kid. Because we're in that continuity. Yeah, I don't know what version of Strange we're going to see, but my mind immediately went to the episode of Spidey where, Spidey met Doctor Strange and they had to get Mary Jane back from Mordo and Dormammu. But I love that scene because it's just another instance of the universe here being huge. I love how Beast knows about the mystics of Camartage. Yeah, after everyone's gone, you've got Tilby showing up, and right when she steps into the lab with Coco, I'm thinking, she's a Prime Sentinel. She's been a Prime Sentinel the whole time. You're not fooling me, writers. I know what you're doing here, because we saw Trask in the last episode as a sleeper agent. When you got Cable, Scott, and Bishop showing up at Bastion's home, and they meet his mom, I'm thinking, okay, the old lady is going to be a Prime Sentinel too. We're going to see some really creepy contortionist stuff at some point, in which of course we do. But I like how Jean discovers that basically some part of Nimrod from the future entered Bastion's dad's ear, according to the audio description track. And you have them finding out that Bastion, he's a descendant of every Sentinel from Master Mold to Nimrod. And they didn't go the whole Siege Perilous route like they did in the books, but I mean, it's basically the same. Bastion he's a conglomeration of every Sentinel. As Jean says, he's mutated, he's evolved, he was born. And it's basically the same Bastion I remember from the X Dimension, the X Dimension, X-Men: The Next Dimension, the video game that I used to have when I was a kid. I still do have it. I just can't play it because I don't think my PS2 works anymore. But such a crazy, creepy scene, because while the old lady's talking to him in Bastion's old childhood home, she starts saying these really creepy things like, "Oh, do you guys have any children? You should cherish them while you can." And I was like, oh, I hope Cable ain't about to be unalived. I really don't want to see that. And right when she shows them that art of the Sentinels that Bastion drew when he was 16, and she starts like twitching and contorting, I was like, oh, geez, Cable, watch your butt. Please watch your butt. And then you've got all the fight scenes starting, because this is when the rollout happens. As we heard in the last episode, everybody starts turning into Prime Sentinels, and there are tons of them. I like how Beast is running that program in Xavier's school, and he's like, oh, I've got to warn the team. And then of course, Tilby does her thing, and she turns into Prime Sentinel Tilby. And I was afraid for Beast. After Gambit supposedly was unalived, I don't know. I'm really afraid for all of the X-Men, even though this is a comic booky show, and there's a way to bring everybody back because comics are comics, and that happens all the time. I'm like, geez, she just threw Beast through a wall, but of course it's Hank, and he's just unconscious. Really cool part of the episode was, or for me, when we got that really cool fight scene in the school, because you've got Nightcrawler. He's standing guard there by Rogue. You've got Wolverine, who's just slashing away at Sentinels, and they're healing, but at the same time he just keeps going nuts with his claws, and screaming like only Cal Dodd can scream as Wolverine. I got goosebumps during this fight scene. It's been something I've been waiting for the entire season. I'm glad that Wolverine is doing stuff in the episode. I love how he shows up and those claws just kind of go through that one Sentinel while the Sentinel's standing by Rogue. And then Nightcrawler comes with the swords, and you've got all the blades going at once, but the Sentinels can heal. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, is this going to end with everybody being captured? How is this episode going to end? And I think another one of my favorite scenes was the one that took place in Bastion's lab, because I like when the villains are just kind of hanging out and talking with each other. So, seeing Val Cooper showing up, she's all right. She's in the lab. My first thought was, okay, is this Val posing as Mystique? Just like in the comics. I do remember reading that at some point. Val had Mystique posing as her. And I'm thinking, she's a bit more contrite than I am used to Val being, but that's probably, it could be Mystique, or it could just be Val really being sorry for what had happened on Genosha. But then there are little, I would say, tells in her conversation later when she's talking to Bastion after, we learn that she frees Magneto. She talks about being there, being chased by robots who are going to crush you. The way that she talks, it makes me think that it might be Mystique. I don't know if it is or it isn't. Could very well be Val, but we haven't seen Mystique yet, and I hope that is remedied before the season ends. And Mr. Sinister, I like how he's having a field day working with Bastion, but at the same time, he's Mr. Sinister and he's planning on using Bastion. He just likes being able to use mutants as guinea pigs. He's having a good time laughing about what he's going to do, experimenting on mutants. You've got Bastion talking to the members of Operation Zero Tolerance, and when you see the silhouettes on the monitor, and the first one says something like, Doom may be colluding with you, but he doesn't condone your war crimes. I'm like, oh my God, we get Doom in this. And my first thought was, this is probably the same Doctor Doom from the 90s Marvel cartoon universe, Marvel animated universe. This is the same Doctor Doom that we got in Secret Wars in the Spider-Man animated series. Are we going to see Spider-Man at some point? Which of course we do. I think from what a user on Twitter said, that we also see Baron Zemo, but I'm not sure who the woman is. It could be Lady Deathstrike. I would like to think that it is Deathstrike. Could be someone else entirely on Operation Zero Tolerance. But Yuriko hates Wolverine, so I mean, it would make sense that she's kind of with Bastion because she's all into the cybernetics thing, her and her Reavers. I don't know, that's probably someone else entirely. My first thought was Deathstrike. You've got the rollout going on while all this is going on. I like Jubilee and Roberto. They've been hanging out with the parents, and Mom is, of course, not happy with the X-Men's quote-unquote lie. So, I mean, they've gone to the mall, but the butler turns out to be a Sentinel. I like how, it's another pandemonium at the mall incident here in Jubilee. She just says, I'm done with malls. But I miss 90s malls, Jubilee. I miss them a lot. You've got Sunspot saving her, but then when they head back to Mom, she actually betrays her own son to conserve her precious reputation. Ugh. And they are captured. They've got inhibitor collars on, and we don't see them for the rest of the episode. So I'm guessing Jubilee is in the not so tender loving care of Bastion. I don't know. I think from what I remember reading in several articles, she was captured by him for a time, and I don't know if that's going to bode very well for her. I like how after Val unleashed Magneto, the episode didn't end the way I thought it would at all. I thought everybody was going to be brought to their knees. I thought Xavier was going to, show up at the end of the episode, and we were going to see like a little resistance forming. But no, after Magneto was let out, he just goes nuts. I love how the first word he said since he's been captured is enough. And he is just awesome when he releases the electromagnetic pulse there at the end of the episode. And all the Prime Sentinels, I just love how he's like, nah, we're not having this. And he just shuts them all down. And I like how Wolverine says, yeah, Eric basically declared war. So I wonder if we're going to finally get that scene where you've got the X-Men and you've got the Brotherhood, and they're running at each other. the scene that we have seen in the opening credits for, years and years now, if we're going to finally see that in an actual episode. It's just a crazy way to end the episode with Magneto finally, he's just like, nah, I'm gonna shut all your Sentinels down. This is it. I've had it. He has tried his best to be lenient, but he's just done. And I like how Charles lands at the end of the episode, and he's like, oh, am I too late? And then we see hthen calling the X-Men, and then we get the "to me, my X-Men" quote at the end of the episode. And Storm is going to come back. I am scared to death, though, because we saw Charles kind of having a fit when he had that vision of Gambit dying at the end, or toward the end of Life, Death Part 2. We have Magneto here, who has had enough of all that's been going on. And there's so much anger being unleashed, so much just grief from these two. And my ridiculously loud neighbor is revving his truck outside. So that's kind of making me wonder if we're going to see Onslaught at the end of the season. If not at the end of the season, then our major bad guy for the second season. I don't know, but Xavier and Magneto have been through a lot. And it's making me think, yeah, they're going full-on Onslaught, which has been something I've wanted to see even back when the animated series was going on for the first time. Or maybe, after it ended. I first heard about this entity from my brother. I think he had a few comics featuring Onslaught, but I loved how my brother had described, what this entity was, what he looked like, and I was like, man, I want to see that in the cartoon. Why didn't we get that in a cartoon? So hopefully we're going to go there at some point. I don't know what to expect during the last 2 episodes of this show. I think we ain't seen nothing yet. I certainly ain't seen nothing yet. No pun intended. Well, pun kind of intended. I give this episode a 10 out of 10. Oh, when Magneto does the EMP there at the end, everybody sees it, and we see Spider-Man. And right away I'm thinking this freaking has to be the Spider-Man from the 90s animated series. The Christopher Daniel Barnes version of Spider-Man who was looking for MJ. But no, we didn't hear the voice, but I'm thinking this has to be the same Spidey, because that's the Spidey that teamed up with the X-Men in his show. These are the same X-Men that crossed over with Spider-Man. So, that makes me really hope that Marvel is hinting that, yeah, we're gonna finish up the search for Mary Jane and something or other in the future in a cartoon. I really hope so. Because as much as I'm okay with the whole MCU prequel Spidey show, this stuff right here is what I really want. I want more 90s Spidey. Of course, I would love Spectacular Spider-Man to come back too. If you asked me to make a choice between the two, I couldn't, because I love both. But yeah, I just love that scene where we saw him swinging across the rooftops, and I was like, that's got to be the Spider-Man I was first introduced to when I was a kid. And then we see Omega Red. He's back in his tank there. I guess he was found at the bottom of the ocean after the submarine incident. And he's waking up because Magneto shut everything down. So I was like, oh, crap, this guy's coming back again. And then, you got Silver Samurai. I hope he's going to have something to do. I love everything. All the little cameos we got in this episode. I really hope that we see more of Doctor Doom. Awesome that we got that little cameo by him. Just hearing him talk about himself in third person. Love that bit in the episode. I don't know what to expect next. So yeah, next time we're going to be talking about Tolerance's Extinction Part 2. That's all I got. So hear you next week.